Hello.
Thomas, once you started the webinar. Thomas?
Ja, hallo. Ich habe hier gerade noch eine ganz lange Ansage bekommen.
So it's 1 minute after the hour. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the ICANN84 Readout. There are still people joining the room. Please hold the line. The webinar will begin shortly. So again, welcome to the ICANN84 Readout, the highlights and takeaways from the annual general meeting that just recently happened in Dublin. It has been the 27th general meeting of ICANN. And my name is Lars Steffen. I'm the head of Digital Infrastructures, Resilience and International at the ECO Association. And with me, I have two excellent hosts. So for the first time, I'm glad to welcome Adam Peake with us. He's Global Stakeholder Engagement with ICANN, because Chris Mondini is attending the Web Summit today and is not able to join us. And of course, with us is also Thomas Rickert. He's the Director, Names and Numbers of the ECO Association. I would also like to take the opportunity to welcome our excellent panel of speakers who provide the reports and updates from the respective constituencies that are present. So with us is Nacho Armandos for the first time. He's the outgoing Vice Chair of the GNSO Council. Also with us is Elizabeth Bacon, wearing her TCCM hat today primarily. Nicolas Caballero, he's Chair of the GAC. Alejandra Reynoso, also a first-time participant. Welcome. She's chair of the CCNSO Council. Philippe Foucault, many of you will know him already from previous editions of this readout format. He is the chair of the ISPCP. And I think very shortly, also Joanna Kulesar from the ALEC will join us. She's the liaison to the GAC. And last but not least, with us is also Ram Mohan. He's the chair of the ASSEC. Before we get things started, I just would like to go through our housekeeping rules. So this is a webinar. So of course, this webinar will be recorded and available shortly after the session. For this webinar, the ICANN expected standards of behavior apply. You are muted throughout the webinar, but we would like to have this as interactive as possible. So you can ask questions and submit your questions through the questions pod on your GoToWebinar dashboard. But you can also submit your questions verbally by using the raising your hand button. We will unmute you. Please state your name and your affiliation before you ask your questions, and then we can dive into substance. After the webinar, you will receive a short survey. So when you close the window, a short survey will be displayed. This is always a great opportunity for you to provide feedback and for us to learn what went well, where we can improve, and which other topics you would like to see covered in future editions of this format. Before we get things started, I would like to recommend another event that ECO is holding next week on site in Berlin. So there we will discuss email security and digital sovereignty and which opportunities you will have owning your own domain name or even your new top-level domain name in the light of the new GTLD program that is coming up next year. Also there, we will have an excellent panel of speakers. So Christopher Mondini will be there. Adam Peake will also be there. We will have the Federal Office of Information Security present, talking about email security, but also Thomas Rickert will represent the association along with Andre Görmer, who is our head of the email security working group at ECO. But also Michael Littker, he's the strategy director at the Cyber Intelligence Institute in Germany, and Katrin Olmer, she's with .zone, also known, and also for .berlin at that event. If you'd like to learn more about our on-site events, our webinars, and everything else, please go to our website or subscribe to our newsletters. And I just checked that this collaboration between ICANN and ECO doing this webinar is having now its 5th anniversary. So we do this now for 5 years because this is the 15th readout format as we see it here today. So it's a little celebration that we can mark on our calendar. And with this, I would like to hand over to Adam and give me a short second to switch to Adam's slides.
Thank you very much, Lars. And I didn't know that it was the 5th anniversary. Thank you very much for organizing this with the GSC Europe team. Yeah, it's nice. Thank you. Are the slides there? I see all our faces on the screen at the moment. Because if not, I can try to begin anyway, because you will see what. There we are. Yes.
There we are. But your audio is a little bit.
Is it? I will try and. How are we doing? I haven't used the GoTo webinar for some time. Is this loud enough? I'm leaning in a bit.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
So excuse my large head in your screens. I hope you're seeing the slides. So it's the readout for Dublin, of course, ICANN84, 25th to the 30th of October. I think we've all just about recovered from what was a very enjoyable time in Dublin. Could you go to the next slide, please? And this one is no surprise. It's the by the numbers, what we normally do for these events, just to review what we did. And I think the most important thing to note is really that the ICANN84 annual general meeting was originally planned to be in Muscat, Oman. And the pivot from that location took place on June the 30th. That was the announcement, and that was the day that staff knew about it as well. 117 days, and in that time we've organized, with the help particularly of the SO and AC leaders, 190 public sessions, about 1,500 on-site participants. That means badges, 129 countries. Usual numbers really, about 500 people virtually. The fellows came from the Asia Pacific region predominantly, or at least the bias of the fellows came from there. And there were 11 or 12 next gen who were all from the Asia Pacific. It was the 10th anniversary of holding an annual general meeting in Dublin, and I think it went exceptionally well, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. But I would like to point out just how astonishing it is to work with the ICANN meetings team. 117 days to prepare this, from finding the venue, but getting the tech involved, the bandwidth that we need, and the hotels reserved was kind of outstanding and great to see. So thank you. The next slide, please. So my colleagues who will present on the specifics of many sessions and what the supporting organizations and advisory councils and all the constituencies did found to work on in those sessions. But there's a couple I wanted to highlight from a perspective of the ICANN org, and particularly GSE. Important time for us in the geopolitical world. The WSIS Plus 20 review is very much a focus for many people and many of the constituencies. And we were fortunate that one of the co-facilitators of the WSIS Plus 20 review accepted an invitation to come to the ICANN meeting. There was a session held on the Monday morning, I think it was the 27th of October, taking input. It was the session and his participation was counted as part of the official consultations taking place under the United Nations General Assembly. So we were very pleased to see that. And on the screen, you can see the link to that particular session, and also the WSIS outreach network, which is something that my government engagement colleagues have arranged, and it's a source of information. And what's happening now is a series of consultations that will take place in New York and online, and you can find information about that. The second highlight, and this was something that I was personally particularly interested in, was the ICANN grant program. Using the auction proceeds funds and beginning this pilot to allocate $10 million, just under $10 million, to an initial pilot tranche of, I think it was 23 applications. You can see information linked from the schedule from ICANN84, and there was also an update during prep week. We're anticipating further rounds of the grants program. There's a lot of money to allocate, and I imagine that we're going to be taking community input on how best to do that. So that's something to keep an eye on. Excuse me. And AGMs are always a time of transition and change, and of course Dublin was no different. The Tarek Kamel Award for Capacity Building was given to Alfredo Calderon, who has been very involved in the at-large, but also developing all kinds of capacity building programs. So a nice recognition for Alfredo. A recognition of outgoing community leaders and working group chairs and so on, people who've participated in policy development and other processes, with great thanks to them. And those transitions that we recognize with new board members, Becky Burr, who has been, she almost is ICANN in many ways, participant from 1998 when she led the NTIA process. I think it was 9 years on the CCNSO and 9 years as a board member. Exceptional contributions from Becky. She'll be missed and irreplaceable. Martin Botterman, former ICANN board chair, Chris Chapman, former vice chair, and we have new board members, Constance Delus, who's from France, so from our European region, Greg DiBiase, who's coming in from the GNS, one of the GNSO seats, and Raul Echeverria, who is well known from his time as CEO of LACNIC and involvement with the Internet Society. So that's the transition. Those are the things that I wanted to highlight, and I know you will talk about all of the sessions in much more detail. So thank you very much for that, and that's me finished for the day. So thank you, and questions, of course, and I hope the links work. And I will put some information about another webinar that Gabby, my colleague, is organizing on the 26th of November about RDRS, which I think will probably be covered in this session as well. So thank you very much, Lars. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Adam. Let me switch the slides. I will share the link to the webinar that you just mentioned in the chat to everyone who's participating, so that you can just click on it and register. So thank you very much. Let me just switch the slides. Because with this, I would like to give the floor to Thomas Rickert. And we would like to start everything before we dive into substance with a quick note of condolence.
Thanks very much, Lars. And hi, everybody. Unfortunately, we have to make a very sad announcement. I think most of you will have heard that our dear friend Ruben School died on the 3rd of November. He left his wife and two children aged 3 and 11 behind. he was a very knowledgeable person, very witty person. I think you will agree with me that he was one of the kindest persons in the industry, always helping out if you had questions. And this is a huge loss, not only for for his family, but also for this community. So let's have a moment of silence. Thank you very much. It's difficult to segue to other matters, but we are here today to discuss what happened at ICANN84. And we would like to start with the topic of RDRS and urgent requests. As usually, we have one person from the panelists that's going to do an introduction of the topic, and then other speakers will add to that. And for the RDRS and urgent request topics, I will go first. As you know, the RDRS is the registration data request system. The pilot, the 2-year pilot, has ended, and the question was now, how do we continue? Do we continue with the RDRS at all? And the RDRS Standing Committee has come up with recommendations. And actually today, the consensus call for what we call assignment number 4 ended, and it looks like there have been no objections, so that we have full consensus on 5 out of 6 recommendations in the Standing Committee, and consensus on 1 topic. So the RDRS, as the Standing Committee suggests, will continue beyond the pilot period. That's recommendation number 1. Recommendation number 2 is to allow for the authentication of interested requestor groups. So we will begin with authenticating or having an authentication mechanism for law enforcement. Recommendation 3 is to implement key system enhancements to sustain and evolve the RDS post-pilot with more policy work, for example, and there shall be improvements on the API, user interface redesign, and the optional participation by the CCTLD community. Then we suggest further policy work in the areas of privacy and proxy data, the inclusion of RDRS links in RDAP responses, for example. Then recommendation number 5, to consider to include more substance of the policy recommendations coming out of the EPDP phase 2, and on the SSAD, the standardized system for access and disclosure in particular, which, as you will recall, was the starting point for all this. But since the SSAD was considered too expensive by the ICANN board, we now have what some would call a stripped down version of the SSAD called the RDRS. But this should be a project and a product, a service that shall evolve. And last recommendation is that the current Standing Committee shall remain in place with narrowed scope. So the RDRS is going to be live and kicking. That's the good news. I'm a big advocate of the RDRS because I think it's good to have such mechanism in place. One of the associated questions when it comes to the RDRS is going to be whether the authentication mechanism shall be used in the mandatory fashion. And I guess that's something that will cause some more discussion, because there are those who say, the participation in the RDRS is voluntary, and therefore using a system on authentication law enforcement authorities should also be voluntary for the contracted parties involved. We have an associated issue with respect to urgent requests. And as you will recall, this has been a discussion that's been going on for more than 2 years now, because the recommendations coming out of the EPDP left a blank in the recommendations and left it to the implementation to specify the timeline to respond to urgent requests. And there has been a lot of back and forth. I will not bother you with all the historical details, but the compromise that is now included in a document that is now up for public comment. The public comment period will be open until the 5th of December, and I suggest that you chime in with your comments. Basically says that if you receive an urgent request, you need to respond within 24 hours. And in a narrow subset of exceptional circumstances, you can get that extended by 48 hours to come up with a substantive response. Also, a question surrounding that is whether we need policy or whether it's a matter of implementation to embed the authentication mechanism into the registration data policy. The group is also looking for feedback from commenters during the public comment period as to whether they think that this is a matter of implementation or whether policy work is required. So I suggest that if you're interested in the urgent request timeline discussion and in the discussion on whether or not the inclusion of an authentication mechanism for law enforcement is a matter of policy or implementation, you should chime in and make yourself heard. So I do know that Nico would like to chime in as well. So Nico, this was my quick overview, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Before I refer to the RDRS, to the gist of it, to the RDRS issue, let me suggest seventh, is it, or sixth or fifth recommendation for the system, which would be the use of open source software by all means. And we don't need to discuss that here, but for many different reasons, there's a whole bunch of reasons why the system should be open source. So in terms of the RDRS itself, the GAC is basically pushing, ICANN.org to create a permanent, a centralized system that makes it easier for groups like law enforcement, agencies, to request domain registration data from registrars. We basically argue that the current pilot program, needs to stick around, and we agree with you in that regard, after its trial period and get, upgrades to work better for everyone, very especially for law enforcement agencies and governments, right? This is from the point of view of the GAC, of course. Right now, registrar participation is voluntary, and the GAC wants that to change. We say making it mandatory, including for privacy and proxy services tied to registrars. We think that that is key for avoiding clunky or time-consuming processes where requesters have to contact each registrar individually, a long and complicated process. So we backed this in a recent public comment, applauded ICANN.org's decision to keep RDRS running, and we plan to weigh in again once ICANN.org shares a broader analysis of how to align the system with policy goals. And we're basically urging the board to keep this as a top priority after the public feedback, of course. And we stress that, as everybody knows, a reliable global system is crucial, at this point, to streamline the process and actually build trust. So let me stop there and give you back the floor. That's more or less the the key message from the GAC. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Does anyone else want to chime in on this topic? Given that we have a long list of topics that we want to go through, I suggest we leave it there. Again, please do participate in the public comment period. And if you agree with Nico that any system that is deployed by ICANN in that regard should be based on open source, that's also the place where you should make your voice heard. Great. So that's RDRS and urgent requests. Let's now move to the topic of IGOs and NGO protections. And Nacho is going to give us an update on where we are with that.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Yes, this topic is such a masterclass on why ICANN is so ICANN-esque, and it has so many levels that I don't know where to begin with. So I was taking a look at the notes, and I was trying to not be dragged by them to sound robotic, but when you look at them and how the story unfolds, it really has to give you pause. So it starts in 2013, right, with a working group trying to determine what should be the protections for international governmental organizations and international non-governmental organizations, which is great, and it's a good idea. And the conclusions were non-controversial, I think, at that point. The controversy and why this, drags us to ICANN84 12 years later is because in September, when staff and the implementation recommendation team starts looking at this and how this is going to play with the applicant guidebook, they have a discrepancy, and the discrepancy is how to make the protection for these organizations, whether they should be included in string similarity or not, whether that could mean that this impacts their ability to register or to apply for the names if somebody else applies first for a similar name. So they have this discussion and they bring this to the council. But in the meantime, the ICANN board, and that was also clarified during ICANN84, and I think that we reached a good point, also sent a letter to the GNSL Council indicating what would there be the preferred interpretation. And this was kind of perceived at some point as an intent or an attempt by the ICANN board to try to influence the council decision. And it was clarified during ICANN84, and you, Thomas, had a very good role there to indicate that, yes, the board should be able to express their opinions and that it is okay and that it usually made things better and that this shouldn't prevent the board from expressing their opinions in the future. So I think that was all clear. But the crux of the issue here is whether the council, referring this to the board, or using some language that was not intended in 2013, would be deviating from what the implementation recommendation team and the working group intended. And this was a very important discussion to have, I think. The substance of the issue is very important because we need to respect what was devised, how it was devised, and also update the issue to our current reality and what is going to happen in 2026 with the next one. But it was also very important, and even though it has given us, a lot of the people in this room, some headaches, it was important to understand what we were discussing and how we needed to approach the issue and to make this move forward in a manner that was respectful to the policy development process in ICANN. And I think that's why I'm saying that this is such a masterclass in referring to what people said 10 years ago, but finding the language and committing to a compromise that tries to get the council together. And we are going to be voting on this tomorrow. And as we're speaking now, there are friendly amendments still coming in, with lots of people working to find the way to move this forward. We've had this issue in 4 consecutive meetings. One of them was an extraordinary meeting. In all of them, the issue became more and more clear. The positions became more and more clear. People understood each other better, I think. And the fact that we are still refining the language means that people are trying to find this ground to make this happen in a way that respects how the PDP should work, what the people that refer to how the policies should work, what were the intentions, and how we can also make this move forward in a manner that provides the adequate certainties for any applicant, not only the protected entities, so that any applicant should know that these are the rules and that this is going to work this way when they apply for something that could be considered similar. So tomorrow we have the council meeting. I think this is going to be the 5th, right, in which we discuss this. I think that we can say at this point that this is going to be approved, respecting what the working team devised and what the implementation recommendation team is considering. This discussion between what was the staff interpretation or staff proposal to move forward and what was the implementation review team proposal, I think that has also helped many of us working on this issue and in this environment. How can we set the boundaries so that we are clear on how to move forward in many discussions? So all in all, it has been an education masterclass, really. I think it will get to a good point that will get, I think, most of us satisfied with how we got here. Now we will see tomorrow, so you will have to stay tuned to find out about the result. But I think that we will make it. And that is what happened for the IGOs and INGOs there in ICANN84.
Yeah.
We could make this longer and be for the full hour talking about how it was, but I don't think we need to do that, right?
I hope not. Nacho, thank you so much for giving us this summary. And actually, when I chaired the working group more than 10 years back, I didn't anticipate that to haunt us for 12 or 13 years. Also, I think, on substance, we should await the council discussion and vote during the meeting tomorrow. So let's not go there. But I'd like to emphasize one point that you also touched upon, and that is the way we interact between the different parts of the ICANN ecosystem. The GNSO has begged the board to be more transparent in sharing with us what they think on certain topics. And this time around, they chose to do that. So we had 2 options on the table, and the board in its letter expressed a preference for one of the options, and that was perceived by some as the board putting its thumbs on the scale, an undue exercising of influence on the GNSO process. And that led to quite some frustration with Becky Burr in particular, who I think was the pen holder for this letter. So she wanted to help the GNSO Council by being transparent, and it still wasn't right. And I think what we should learn from this is that, yes, we do write letters, but we should not So I think that the letter by the board was well-intentioned. It was misunderstood by part of the GNSO and its council, and I think we should be more cautious in drawing premature conclusions when we receive communication. All right, so I think we should move on and talk about the next round. And Nico, you're going to be the first one giving us an introduction.
Absolutely, very happy to share with you what the GAG discussed, during the ICANN84 meeting in Dublin. I agree with you that caution is always a very good thing, Thomas. I was referring to the topic you were discussing before. So in terms of the next round of GTLDs, I can share, there are many, actually, many many different topics I could share with you, but at this point I will concentrate only on three. On basically ASP, the geographic names issue, and the Latin diacritic. So as regarding the ASP, the Applicant Support Program, which was meant to help, and that was the original idea, right, to help underserved regions apply for new domain extensions. We really think that it isn't working as intended, despite outreach and and deadline extensions. We think that applications are still too low and unevenly distributed at a global level, risking the program's credibility at this point, and by the way, DNS diversity goals. The GAC, we want ICANN.org to connect applicants with the governments by sharing, and this is basic common sense, right? By sharing contacts for better support, to do a deep review after the 2025 program, to fix issues wherever, wherever they are found, and keep collaborating to ensure that future rounds will actually boost participation from underrepresented areas. We think that without those fixes, the program might fail to diversify the domain, the DNS system, which was the original idea. So again, let me stop there in order to see if there are reactions or feedback from the audience. Otherwise, I'll refer very quickly also to the issue of the additional fees for geographic names, and we talked about this, with not only with GAG representatives during ICANN84, but with people from many other constituencies. So in general, the GAG is raising questions about ICANN.org's plan to charge extra fees for reviewing geographic names, like .Paris, .Asunción, .Berlin. I'm just giving examples here. .Alsace, or in the next round of the main expansions, we're comparing these to the excuse me, to the 2012 round, basically, where similar reviews didn't come with added costs. And I stand to be corrected here, but if my memory serves me well, they didn't come with added costs, right? And we basically want ICANN.org to clearly explain why these fees are necessary now. We also think that the current rules are a little bit confusing about when geographic names panel steps in and how fees actually apply. We argue, the GAC argues that charges should only happen in rare cases, in very specific cases, not as a default. Very especially when documents proving a region's right to a name can be actually, verified by local government reps, including GAG representatives, as the rules already allow. That's our point. We're again urging ICANN.org to tighten the wording to avoid any kind of ambiguity on the one hand, and on the other hand, to ensure that fees don't unfairly block smaller regions from applying. In a nutshell, the GAC's main message is to keep the process fair, transparent, and affordable, to protect you know, this is basic common sense again, to protect geographic diversity in the DNS system. And I'll stop there because I could, you know, talk forever about, you know, and give examples and so on and so forth. And finally, let me refer, you know, to Latin diacritics. We highlighted concerns about ICANN's handling of Latin script diacritics, like accents in words such as café or naive, or I don't know, Asunción, the capital city of Paraguay, just to give a few examples. And there are many other examples coming from many different countries like Canada and many other places, right? For new domain extensions, we think that while a policy process is underway to address, you know, how these characters are treated, especially when equivalent ASCII versions exist, like for example, café, the GAC notes that rules won't be finalized in time, and you know, and I really wish to be corrected here. I really wish I am wrong, for the next round's launch, you know, in terms of timing. We're again urging ICANN's board and the GNSO, by the way, to find a way to integrate these policies into the application process without delaying the rollout. That's a key issue, without delaying the rollout, and again, ensuring fair treatment for languages using diacritics, like my language, to give an example, like Spanish and French and many other, right? So we stressed, you know, and we put that in our communique, that solutions actually exist to balance timely execution with proper safeguards, avoiding last-minute surprises for applicants. And again, let me stop here because I know that there are some French speakers, you know, among the panelists and in the audience as well. So let me stop here in order to see if we have reactions. Thank you. Back to you, Thomas.
Thank you so much. We do not have any questions in the questions part from the audience, so I suggest that we move to the next speaker from the panel, and that's Joanna. Joanna, welcome. And you wanted to chime in on this topic as well. The floor is yours. Joanna, in case you're speaking, we can't hear you. So I see your microphone is unmuted, but there's no audio signal. In the interest of time, I suggest that we hear Beth first and then go back to Joanna, if that's okay. Beth, over to you.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay. Thanks. This is Beth Bacon. I'm here with my, as Laura said, with my TCCM hat on, but I'm also the chair of the registry stakeholder group. So I thought I would chime in just a little bit and be sneaky. And just note that the registries are also preparing for the 2026 round and kind of the influx of new potential registry operators. Much as, you know, it's, as Nico noted, the challenges of having applicant support and understanding what people are doing. As we did in the 2012 round, we're going to spin up what we call the new TLD applicant group within the registries. Because when you're an applicant, you just kind of live in here in the middle ground, and you don't have that connection because you're not really a member of the community. There's no group to join. So we create an observer group within the registries that applicants are welcome to join, and have that connection to the policy and the community, so that we can hope that we can resolve these sorts of questions. If there is a question from the GAC or we want to try and connect folks, we try and build that bridge. So, you know, to the extent that that we can, we try and facilitate conversations and policy discussions. And I also I will take this moment. I lived through the 2012 round as a participant in the GAC and as in my former government role. And I think the GAC is doing a fantastic job preparing and being really with concrete advice, I think, and noting and preparing for the round. It was a little bit of a drinking from a fire hose, for lack of a better term, in 2012. So it was very understandable, but I'm so happy to see that we're kind of like trying to make sure that we are getting in advance. Registries are trying to do the same thing so that we can make sure that we have some support for our applicants, and then also connections to the other parts of the community, especially the GAC. Should you need it, you always know how to find me, and then I know how to find the applicants. So if anyone has questions or comments about that, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much, Beth. I suggest that if you want to comment, please do use the chat function or ask a question in the chat pod, and then we will go to you. Joanna, let's give it another try, whether we can get your audio working.
I do hope it's working now. I've changed the
Now it's working. Great.
Yes, thank you so much. I apologize. Sorry, something technical on my side. I apologize. I have very peculiar background, but I will try to attend to that one as well. Wonderful to be here. Thank you so much, guys, for setting this up and for keeping space for the at large. I'm always thrilled to be able to join and contribute. Indeed, the next round is of high importance to the community. I am particularly lucky to be following Nico's lead, as I'm certain the entire community has by now observed the at-large and the GAC go hand in hand when it comes to representing individual internet users for the GAC. These are the citizens, the representatives of their respective national communities. And for us, it's the individual end users, or the ALSs, the at-large structures that we have the honor of representing. This is probably just for me to emphasize and chime in on the point so eloquently made by Nico. Much emphasis is on applicant support. From the at-large perspective, this support likely is represented along two lines. On one hand, it means the technical support, it means the funding, it means legal expertise and legal support as well. But on the other hand, it also means capacity building. We have always felt it rests on our shoulders to make sure that the individual end users, particularly in underrepresented regions, particularly in underserved communities, are aware of this opportunity, and that we are able to build their capacity and help them efficiently to get along with the program. We have hosted a number of sessions, both capacity building, but also feedback sessions to get a better understanding of where our community stands with regards to the next round and applicant support. And the feedback we have been getting was eloquently reflected by Nico. More could be done, to say the least. There is concern that this may remain the game for the big players, for those who are already on the board. So this is for me to just chime in and say, well, we would definitely appreciate more support, but not only on the organizational side, if you will, but also with regards to capacity building. I know that the Global Stakeholder Engagement team has been holding meetings. If there was a way to work out a system where the at-large structures could be more involved, where we could better support the activities that are already happening with the wonderful input from Adam and his team, that would be something we would look forward to. So this is probably for me just to say that the next round is very high up on our agenda, and we always welcome instructions and support on how to better work with the community. The GAC has been wonderful, and we always read from the same script when it comes to supporting individual end users. But if there was more support, more information, more instructions coming also from the org, that's probably something we would appreciate. I'm going to stop here. We had an intense discussion on Latin diacritics as well, but I will refer to Nico's points. And again, thank you for bearing with my technical challenges too.
Thank you so much, Joanna. We're so happy to have you, and happy that the technical issues could be sorted out so that we could hear your intervention. Great. So let's move to Nacho then. We have a couple more topics to cover. So if all of you could keep your interventions short, that would increase chances that we get through everything. Nacho, over to you.
Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, I'll try to be super short. On the geographic names panel, I'm not going to say much because Nico already said that. From the GeoTLD group, we appreciate the GAC response and that they included that, because we think it's simply completely understandable why this additional so high fee. Now, there is a question that may have an impact on the next round, and that is what is happening with the registry services provider accreditation process and the registry system testing. This was not ICANN84 topic, but this happened during ICANN84. So in this regard, it seems that there are some delays in the accreditation of registry service providers. I think that the date initially was to be at beginning of December, but we know that the process is going super slow, and there are some clarifying questions that are a bit complicated to understand how these are questions at this point in time. And there was some failure of the registry system testing. Now, we don't need to raise costs from the past, but we all remember the glitch. And this doesn't start well. And we should have more clear communication from ICANN in this regard and what is happening and how this is going to be fixed and how is this impacting all the efforts doing, not only by ICANN, but from all the people involved in being ready for the next round.
Thank you so much, Nacho. Let's move to Philippe. Philippe, you also wanted to chime in.
Thank you, Thomas. Yes, not much to add to what Nico and Nacho have just said on latent diacritics. As Nico said, it won't be possible to include the results of the PDP that's in flight in the AGB. There's some thinking about how we might include some of the initial recommendations in the next round, but it's still to be defined. I think if we take a step back, it's also telling that for something that is arguably not that complicated, if you speak to a native and say that you need a PDP to figure out that .Quebec with an accent and .Quebec without one should be delegated to the same entity, they're going to be saying, well, it's a no-brainer, is it? And it takes us 2 years to do just that. Obviously, there are reasons for this, but again, with hindsight and in light of what's going to come to haunt us in the next few months, then maybe there's food for thought in terms of expediting, as we say, the PDPs. So indeed, that PDP is just halfway through. We're going to have to wait until the end of next year, off the top of my head, to get the results, which will be too late to include in the new round. So on that optimistic note, I'll hand over back to you, Thomas.
Thank you so much, Philippe. Now, that was great. Another topic that's one of the community's favorites is DNS abuse. So DNS abuse also, not monopolized, but it got a lot of attention during the ICANN84 meeting. And Beth is going to give us an introduction on what happened there.
Yep. Hello, friends. It's Beth Bacon again. Again, I'm here primarily for TCCM, but the registries have been very involved in the DNS abuse conversations, especially leading up to the PDPs. It started a few years ago with the introduction of new contractual clauses for registries and registrars that really endeavored to kind of bring that floor up and standardize the active mitigation of DNS abuse. And as part of that process, we in the community agreed that while those immediate contractual changes were going to be impactful and very important, the most important thing is the next step, which is community engagement, where we discuss this all together through PDP processes. And so with the issues report that came out from the GNSO, I think that they did an incredible amount of due diligence and research and outreach amongst the community and came out with a very comprehensive issues report that highlighted not only they did a gap analysis, and then they highlighted the items that were kind of most cross-cutting or likely to be most cross-cutting and result in some real tangible tools for the community. And so they have identified 2 separate PDP topics and then a suite of other items that we do hope that we can continue to work on and identify the best way forward, whether it be a PDP or best practices or many of the other tools at our disposal to continue the conversations. The GNSO Council and staff held a session at ICANN 84 to discuss do a cross-community discussion about the proposed topics and the processes for the PDPs. I thought there was really, really great community discussion and lots of really good input. There's also a public comment that is currently that they have just wrapped up. So out of all of that collaboration across the community, we are now expecting the council, the GNSO staff, ICANN staff, to amend the issues report and the associated charter, PDP charter or charters that are in the issues report based upon public comment and that interaction, and have that come out, and then so the GNSO can again review and vote and agree and get this PDP process started. I will do a shameless plug. The registries are looking forward to talking and working very hard on this with everyone who's on this call, and especially our SO and AC partners that we went into depth on this at the meeting. But I think that the community collaboration has been really, really great. This is an opportunity for ICANN to be, as a community, be very swift and targeted. If we can all stay dedicated to the cause of getting these PDPs in a very targeted, completed in a targeted and very implementable way, I think that we can show that we are able to do this work. We've had a few PDPs that have attempted to boil all of the oceans of the world at once. And this is our attempt to impose some discipline on ourselves and really focus on creating some really tangible tools for folks. So I will zip it and let others who have comments weigh in.
Beth, I'd just like to add that your employer PIR is also running the NetBeacon Institute, and they put out a white paper a while ago coming up with some suggestions for policy work, and that paper has been very helpful for the GNSO to come up with suggestions for these narrowly tailed PDPs. The two topics at the moment are restricting API access to avoid that wrongdoers use, for example, stolen credit card details to register high volumes of abusive domain names. And the other topic is to look for related domain names if a contracted party is made aware of abusive of DNS abuse. All right, so let's move to Philippe then.
Thank you, Thomas. This is Philippe Rougain speaking here. Oh, and by the way, I'm not going to be speaking on behalf of the ISVCP, although I'm confident that what I'm saying is in line with what we discussed. Just to add to what Beth just said, I think from the commercial stakeholder group perspective, we agree that this is going to be a sort of a critical task, sort of stress test for ICANN, given that the sort of not the interest, but the confidence in the ability of ICANN to in tackling those issues is sort of winding down within the commercial stakeholder group ecosystem. I think it very much like the comment on latent diacritics. We think that the way we frame those PDPs will be critical in terms of making sure that the timeline is reasonable moving forward, recognizing that it's not going to be a silver bullet, that there are many other ways to tackle DNS abuse, given the fact that we don't necessarily agree on what that encompasses as a term. So there might be things that would be better dealt with outside of a PDP. The point is really to make sure that we, as a community, we deliver in such a time that the policy is useful for the ecosystem. Thank you, Thomas. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Philippe. Nico is next on my list. Over to you.
Thank you so much. For the sake of time, I'm going to be very brief because we actually provided, in the GAC communique under issues of importance, topic number 4, and the document is publicly available. I kindly encourage you to take a look at that. Excuse me. that text, you know, the GAC communicate, but just, I'm not going to repeat everything that was mentioned before, just wanted, you know, very quickly to refer to the fact that the GAC actually supports, you know, ICANN.org, providing, you know, DNS abuse contracts compliance, you know, data in, let's say, in a standardized, open, you know, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, and Ram is going to talk about, you know, open source and the importance of open data and open access and everything open, you know, but basically, you know, machine readable formats in order to support evidence-based policy development and enforcement. And there's a lot to talk about, you know, this issue, and we have a fantastic team within the GAC, you know, the DNS abuse topic leads, you know, Japan, the European Commission, the USA, and, you know, but again, for the sake of time, let me just stop here and give the floor to Alejandra. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. And Alejandra, you're going to talk a little bit about the joint GAC and CCNSO session on DNS abuse, right?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone, and thank you for inviting me for this readout. With the GAC, we had a very interesting session that we managed to tackle lots of topics related to DNS abuse in 90 minutes. It was a challenge, but given the new methodologies that we are implementing on how to address topics that are out of convention, we managed that. We did a World Cafe type of style session where we had 5 stations around the room where we covered the use of AI in abuse detection, then challenges of bulk domain registrations, also investigating abuse with domain name portfolios, national framework for scam and fraud, and trusted notifier agreements. The way this works is that we distribute people to go into these stations and discuss these topics for around 18 minutes. Then they switch and change stations. We did this for 3 rounds due to the time. And later we had a summary of each station, so everyone gets a feeling on what was discussed. And we are owing the GAC a summary it's being developed, so it will come, and of course it will be publicly available. And I wanted to also add that in Tech Day, there was a DNS abuse panel that discussed the use of AI as well in prevention of DNS abuse. So it was a topic discussing different levels.
All right, thank you so much, Alejandra. So I think with that, I don't see any hands. We can move to the next topic, and that is the review of reviews. What a name. Enlighten us, Beth. What's behind that?
Sorry, friends, there's a lot of me today. I didn't realize we put my hand up. I caved to Lars's pressure when he was asking for people to enter things. So the review of reviews of the things that we review this is going to be a kind of again a collaborative effort. It has SOs and ACs, ICANN board members, and then ICANN org staff, and then across community members who are reviewing again the reviews. But it's those reviews that are found in the foundational reviews that are found in the bylaws. And we're looking at this, they're trying to look at this as a whole entire kind of system of reviews and looking at how we do this. Many moons ago, again, I'm going to refer to the time that the before times when I was in the government and we talked about these foundational reviews, they made sense. It's been over 10 years, ICANN has evolved. And again, showing that ICANN can look at itself internally and be a little self-aware and say that this isn't really working. I think we can all agree that the kind of ATRT, CCTRT processes are not functional. They are delayed, they're too long, the recommendations are huge, or they need more work. So taking a look at this, again, to encompass the periodic review of the structure and operations, annual reviews, specific reviews, previously conducted reviews, and reviews that have been recommended outside of that process to see how we can regularize that and make it flexible and sustainable. So that is kind of the mission of the review of reviews. It is not small, it is not easy, and yet their timeline is, I'm going to say, aggressive. In the most positive sense of the word, they need to get this going. So they are also doing something that I think is wonderful, and that you'll have seen at least 2 full public sessions with the review of reviews, where they said, this is our scoping document. These are the principles. This is what we're going to build this process off of and our recommendations. And they are aggressively soliciting input. There were webinars before ICANN. There were also specific SO and AC info gathering sessions. And then on the 18th of November, the review of reviews is having another public webinar so that they can share with you the input they received and how they've amended that scope and process. So I do suggest that folks get involved. We talked a lot about this in our registries as well. We do a lot of policy-based work, and it feels very immediate. But this and then other things like this, we do a lot on names, but numbers are often forgotten. And the foundational operations of ICANN, if we can keep ICANN running well and continue to evolve our processes, A, we show the world that multi-stakeholder works, and B, it works better for us and we don't have to spend 12 years on one project. So I think that it's really important, if you are interested in the management and foundational function of the multi-stakeholder model at ICANN, absolutely get involved. It is open to everyone. You can be an observer. I'm an observer. We're also engaging through some of our representatives. It's really kind of just intellectually interesting. It's how do you run these things? How do you review yourself? So it's really very interesting. I will stop talking. I advocate for folks to go to the wiki, take a look at what they've done, and join the review of reviews webinar on the 18th.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And the link to the webinar has just been posted kindly by Alejandra in the chat. So next on my list is Joanna, and then Alejandra.
Yes. Thank you, Thomas. I'm mindful of the time. Just to briefly echo what Elizabeth said, it's great to have reviews. It's also important to have a balanced number of reviews. And I feel like that might be the feedback from the at-large. Again, looking from the very specific at-large viewpoint, we have been through a very strenuous at-large review. We've implemented all the recommendations during the previous period of leadership, and we were looking forward to that process continuing. We view this new round of reviews as maybe somewhat disjoined from the work that was done previously, but it is a fact. So it makes no point to come back to that discussion whether it should be launched or not. One point from the at-large probably is to make sure that whatever processes are being launched, implemented, whatever recommendations are coming, that they take due account of the specifics of each individual constituency. Again, the at-large is a unique beast in that sense, because it is so large and so complex with the ALSs that we always welcome change and improvement, whereas sometimes we might need to raise our hand and say, well, you know, it might work a little bit different in the at-large community. I'm going to stop here, but thank you so much for letting me speak on this important issue.
Sure, thank you so much for your comments. Alejandra.
Thank you, and Beth did an excellent job in summarizing the review of reviews. I just want to add an additional comment regarding the aggressiveness of the timeline. This comes from the fact that everywhere in the ICANN ecosystem, we hear that things in ICANN take a long time to be done. So this is a way of showing that things can be done quicker. So if you set a timeline and you have a goal, maybe things don't take years, but a little less. So just wanted to point that out and highlight that this is an effort for all of us. Like, the cross-community work is just leading the effort, but they rely on the feedback that they will receive from the whole community. So participating in the webinars and giving the feedback when requested, it's crucial for them to be able to accomplish their goals. So thank you.
Yeah, great. I think with that, we can move to you again, Alejandra. Can you talk about WSIS plus 20 a little bit?
Oh, I'll stay here then. Yes, well, already we heard a little bit in the introduction from Adam that WSIS Plus 20 was one of the highlights of the ICANN meeting. And what I want to share with you is that we did a session in the CCNSO regarding this topic and future of and next steps. We had the fortune that His Excellency Ambassador Locale was available to join us and address the community, and he gave us well his views and his admiration for the ICANN community itself and 20 years and standing as a committed community, and how the multi-stakeholder model is being implemented and how it is traveling to the UN, that now they will have a sounding board regarding the multi-stakeholder model, and also that the technical community is recognized in the zero draft, and they're planning on keeping it. And some of the questions that were raised for the ambassador were on ways where CCs could help in this endeavor, or how they could participate. And in essence, the summary was that CCs should always be in good conversations with their governments, because in the end, it's the delegations that are the ones that will participate in the process and the ones that can actually address the topic. And what it's helpful as well is not to revive any past issues that have already been discussed, just to not disturb the flow, and more forward-looking on the discussions to be more efficient with the use of time. But nevertheless, he did point out that there will be another open door to the outside community to have comments on the review of draft. So there will be a consultation on this. And in the same session, there was the presentation as well of CIRA, the Canadian registry. They conducted a research on technical community, and they highlighted how important the multi-stakeholder model is, and that it is important to have a seat at the table, and encourage CCs to have a more active participation in shaping the future that we want. So that's my summary.
Thank you so much. That's great. So we have three panelists that want to chime in on this. If you could keep it to 1 minute, that would be great. First is Beth.
Hello, friends. Thank you, Alejandro. As always, a perfect summary. It's hard to follow, Ali. We engaged as the Technical Community Coalition for Multi-Stakeholderism, the TCCM, with the co-facilitators. It was pretty unprecedented that they spent that much time individually with ICANN and individual groups at ICANN, as well as the board. I thought that was fantastic and really demonstrated their commitment to getting stakeholder input. I did want to flag that the TCCM has taken a look at the most recent revision. It came out last weekend. It's called Rev 1 because the UN's creative. And it was very encouraging. There's still dedicated support for IGF. There is a recognition of the technical community as a individual stakeholder group, which is new and wonderful for us. And there's also support for the sustained IGF mandate and funding, which are all things that are really important to ICANN, the ICANN crowd, but most importantly, like the technical community. And we also note that there is strong support, continued support for the multi-stakeholder model. So as you engage with your governments, your friends, your people, your folks, please feel free to reference the TCCM work. We make all of that public on our website. If you are interested as a technical provider with questions or comments, reach out to us. But we do intend for that all to be a resource for the community. And we think that engagement has gone really, really well. I think that's my minute. I tried to be fast.
Awesome. Yeah. Joanna.
Thank you. Just for the purpose of 1 minute, I'll cut this short to a shameless plug, something that the at-large and the GAC have been successfully doing for a while now. are these bilateral open meetings on regulatory updates. We've hosted quite a few meetings on WSIS Plus 20, and hopefully there is one more coming. So this is to emphasize everything that the previous speakers have excellently pointed out. We need to work on this together. We need to compare our notes, and we need to make sure that we message uniformly to all of those who have the authority to make a decision. And one of the platforms to help us do that in more detail than this very brief condensed format, which is deeply appreciated, are those regular monthly meetings launched by the GAC and the at-large, but open to the whole community. So very much looking forward to you guys participating and chiming in. We will follow up with more detailed agendas and timelines. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Joanna. And last on this topic is Adam.
Yeah, I was just about to post something in the chat to mention that the co-facilitators are being extremely open about the work that they're doing. The informal multi-stakeholder sounding board, which is a mechanism for outreach to various communities. We're very fortunate in that there are at least 4 members who are of that sounding board process who are members of the ICANN community. Jennifer Chung in particular is leading a lot of the work there and is helping update a blog which both the sounding board, which is, as I mentioned, it's a group of about 10 or 12 people drawn from different parts of the global internet community, not just ICANN, and they provide input to the co-facilitators who are managing the process for the United Nations and the President of the General Assembly. So Jennifer is providing blogs and various pieces of information. The sounding board is very open to comment and reaching out to people. So I'll post a link of to that web page in the chat. And just to say that ICANN, as Beth said, we were very pleased to read the first draft of the outcome document, which will be negotiated over the next, what is it, just 5 weeks, I think, until December the 17th or so. So very little time to do, but it's a good document, and we hope it continues in this format. But we have to see how the states respond to it and where the outcomes come from. So thank you. It's looking good, and we are very grateful that the sounding board exists and hope that something like it will continue in the future. It's a way of providing multi-stakeholder input, not only to the WSIS outcomes, but potentially to other United Nations processes. A formalization of multi-stakeholder input would be wonderful to see. Let's see if we can achieve that. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Adam. Now, unfortunately, I have to drop in a moment, so Lars will take care of the moderation for the remainder of this session. But let me introduce Ram. Ram is going to give us an update on ASSEC and related topics. So over to you, Ram.
Thank you, Thomas, and safe travels for you. I will make my readout fairly brief. The biggest thing that the SSAC did that Nico had already previewed a little bit for you was the SSAC has released a report called the DNS Runs on Free and Open Source Software. And this is a report that we have done, we did over the last year. We conducted research. We interviewed with many of the root server operators, DNS resolver operators, registries and registrars, really the organizations that contribute to the critical infrastructure of the internet. And our discovery is that the majority, if not in some cases all, but in most cases the majority of the providers who provide the core technology services that run the internet worldwide depend upon free and open source software. So this by itself may not come as a surprise to many of you on the call. After all, we are used to open source software integrated in many parts of our world. But the reason why the SSAC wrote this report was because we're noticing that regulators, when they are looking to regulate software, including ideas like a software bill of materials, supply chain management using software, etc. They often take the mistaken assumption into those regulatory discussions that software is primarily the kind of software that is sold by in a proprietary model, by the large technology companies in the world, that is usually governed by a contract, governed by some kind of set of SLAs and some kind of an annual maintenance agreement. But most importantly, that these are organizations that you can go after if you need to go and find fault, or if you need to go and make something happen. What we're pointing out is that open source software is quite different. The model is different, the methodology of how it works is different, and regulators really ought to think carefully about the kinds of regulation that they put out, and not assume that the regulation that they are solving for, aiming at platform providers or providers of proprietary software, that model will work equally well with open source. In fact, our study says not only will it not work, if you try to impose that model to the report doesn't say this, but this is my opinion of it, two things will happen. Number one, the regulators will get very frustrated because they won't have somebody to go after or get answers from. And number two, the open source software providers may end up getting annoyed with the regulators and say, okay, fine, I give up, I'm not going to build this anymore. And now you got a piece of critical infrastructure that may be a little bit more at risk. So it's really a educational piece. It's also a cautionary piece to the regulators. So that's the first thing I wanted to share when we presented this at the ICANN meeting extensively at ICANN84. The second thing that is a really positive thing is that, as you've heard mentioned before on DNS abuse, there's a PDP that is getting created, and the SAC is really pleased that it has been invited to have 2 seats in that process and to be able to contribute to the DNS abuse discussions while the discussions are going on, rather than after the PDP completes and then the SAC produces a comment, in kind of after the fact. So that's a really positive move and a welcome move, and that has come because of good interactions with between the SAC and the contracted parties who have been spearheading, the building of this PDP. So that's on the SAC side. Briefly, and I have been making a practice to also mention another initiative that I've been involved with, which is the Coalition on Digital Impact, which is a nonprofit that has been just started up to help ensure that everyone can navigate the internet in their own language. So this is kind of, think of it as universal acceptance plus, right? This is how do you go beyond universal acceptance, and how do you get to actually just access the internet in your language? And that is focused on the last mile or the last piece of the technical stack, where language is not considered a design factor when there is outreach or when there is focus going on. So Cody had a meeting in Dublin. Participation. The biggest thing that comes out of all of this is the initiation of a new project that sets out to define the minimum viable data set that is required to define a language for an AI engine. And this is driven by the concern that AI engines primarily are coded internally in either English or in Chinese. And if you have these AI engines want to learn a language, they pick some set of sources that are not really clear, and they do some kind of translation, but it's really, in many cases, a transliteration to English or Chinese, and then back into your language. So we're starting a project that says, what is the minimum set of data that is required that will allow an AI engine, a GP engine, to actually say, I know this language, so now I can be native in that language. If we can solve that problem, that means that any language in the world will then know what sets of data they need to gather that they can then feed into an AI engine. And this might mean that we not only get to preserve languages, but we get to potentially revitalize languages that are dying or dead. So I'll stop there. Back to you, Lars.
Thank you very much, Ram, and thank you very much for this update on a very interesting topic. And also, we hear every time more and more about the impact of AI also on our industry. So thank you very much for sharing this, which puts us in the position that we have a few minutes left, and we only have one topic left on our agenda. So we can have a perfect stop at the top of the hour. And with this, I would like to hand over again to Philippe. He would like to give a brief update on the ICP2 governance document.
Thank you. Thank you, Lars. I'll be very, very brief. This Internet Coordination Policy #2, it's is 25 years old. It's something that is critical to Internet service providers on the planet. It sits as a governance document for the regional Internet registries and defines the criteria for recognition and derecognition of an existing RAR or a new regional Internet registry. We've had a session during ICANN84 to review the latest update in terms of those criteria to recognize the new regional Internet registry. Went through some notions of stress tests, for example, to make sure that this cannot be gamed. I should say that this was certainly this revision was triggered by the situation in Afrinic, although that's not meant to provide a solution for this. So we discussed the criteria for recognition and derecognition, as well as what happens in sort of degraded mode, as we would say, i.e., if, for example, there's no consensus within the 5 regional Internet registries in terms of the recognition. All in all, this is the revision is going very well. Hopefully, it will be approved, I think, by within the next 6 months or so. Although that's not, as I said, not meant to provide a solution for the situation in Afrinic. There are dependencies with this, and also some discussions, and we had some discussion during the session on how much support beyond the policy document, how much support ICANN can provide to Afrinic, sort of on a statutory terms, moving forward to make sure that the structure is more stable and in a position to continue operations serving notably the Internet service providers in the region. I'll stop here, mindful of time, Lars, and hand over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Philippe. So thank you also for the update on this very important topic. So we reached the end of our agenda, but we also reached the end of the time for this webinar. With this, I would like to give a big thank you to all speakers that are not always taking the time to participate in the webinar itself, but also in all the preparation and things like that. So thank you very much to all of you, but also thank you to all of our attendees. There is a last-minute question on the topic of AI and universal acceptance. I will keep that and pass it on to Ram, because I think the answer would take a little bit more time that we have left. So I will put you in contact with the attendee and with a question so that we can clarify in the depth and detail that is needed. With this, this meeting is adjourned. This has been the last readout for this year, and we are looking forward to the next one after Mumbai in 2026. And with this, the meeting is adjourned, and have a nice rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Wow.